Okay, I think we probably are good to get rolling. I think that's right. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and give everybody a few more minutes to log in, just in case we get a couple stragglers. Seems like with Zoom lately, it's been a little difficult to get in. All right, looks like we've stopped having people join. Uh, Great to see some familiar faces on here. Thank everyone for joining. I'd like to give a quick thanks to Genevieve with the ABA Tech section for putting this on and doing a lot of the work behind the scenes that most people will never see. I'd also like to recognize outgoing YLF chair Janelle, who is also on the call today. Getting right to the point here, as many of you know, and those that don't, my name is Scott Woody. I'm an associate with Spencer Fain LLP out of their Phoenix office. I've been involved with the Law Student Tax Challenge for many years, everything from a student participant to a grader to a drafter to co-chair, just about everything in between. At this time, I'd like to introduce our co-chairs for this year. We've got Greg Chris and Joe Recruit. Joe will be providing you with an overview of the LSTC, and Greg will provide an overview of the volunteer positions. One last thing before I turn it over to Joe, I would like to remind you that there is a sign up link on the ABA Law Student Tax Challenge page, and that's going to be open until Friday. Please sign up as soon as possible so that we can start grouping the volunteers, and please tell your friends. The more work we can spread around, the less work each of us have to do. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe. Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I think, Greg, we can do some quick introductions before we get rolling into the actual, overview and material. My name's Joe Recruit. Kind of like Scott, I've been involved with the competition for a long time as a participant and a grader and a drafter. And this year is my first year kind of being a co-chair. So looking forward to making it a good competition, good year. I'm currently an associate at Reinhardt in Milwaukee. Um, it looks like we have, okay, perfect. And Greg, I'll kick it to you for a quick intro of yourself.
I, along with Joe and Scott, have been involved in the LSTC for several years now as a volunteer in various positions, including marketing and problem drafting, and currently a co-chair. Very excited for this year. Professionally, I work with PwC, M&A Tax in New York.
Perfect. Okay, and so as Scott kind of alluded to, my role is going to be kind of just the general overview. Might be for those of you that have been involved with the competition for a year or two, or maybe even more. I think some of you have been pretty, heavily involved. This will be kind of maybe some boring old news for you, but just want to make sure for any of the new folks on the call, we provide this kind of general overview of what the competition is, who it's for, what the kind of general timeline looks like. So for those of you that don't know, the LSTC is essentially a moot court opportunity for law students and LLM students, focused specifically on tax. As we all kind of know, depending on the law school that you go to, there might be some opportunities as a JD student for tax classes. At other law schools, there might be maybe no opportunity, or you get income tax one and that's it. And so this gives students a way to really kind of dig into some substantive material. It lets them get a resume builder, or at least get experience in what being a tax attorney is sort of like. And it also is a great networking opportunity. To get to know people in the field. And so generally with the competition, there are two separate divisions. There's a JD division and an LLM division, which is kind of a necessary separation because, the LLM students, if we gave them the JD problem, it would be, hopefully at least easy work for them. And so the LLM problem usually deals with more complex topics, where the JD problem is, fairly straightforward things. I think last year when I drafted the problem, there was like a hobby loss issue. I think a very basic 1031 question. And some of those more kind of base level concepts to allow the JD students to kind of engage but not get lost in some of the more complex areas. Whereas with the LLM students, we're not as worried about that. So each of the problems are released in this year. It's going to be September 6th. It's usually sometime around early September. And essentially what the problem is, it's a memo from a, fictitious law partner saying, hey, junior associate, we have this new client and all these novel issues, and I need you to take a look. And it basically takes the form of your typical, junior to mid associate research project when you work as a tax attorney for a private firm. Usually it'll be 3 to 5 different tax issues that you'll have to issue, spot, research, and answer. The students work in teams of 2 to produce 2 separate pieces of work product. The first is kind of a 10-page legal memo to the fictitious partner. And the second is a 5-page client memo or letter, kind of giving some high-level advice, basically testing your ability to distill down the complicated analysis into something that's more user-friendly. So in terms of deadline, and I copied and pasted it here, so I didn't get any of the dates wrong. The problem is going to be released September 6th of this year. Students will then have about a month to work on it. November 4th, I think, is a submission deadline. Then, the grading process will occur. Greg will talk a little bit more about how that happens. Finalists and semifinalists will be notified in mid-December, and then the actual oral competition and crowning of a winner will happen in February this year. It's a little bit pushed back because the meeting is delayed. And so in terms of drafting, this is where all of you come in. Drafting, grading, you guys as volunteers are what makes the problem work, what makes the competition run smoothly. And so there are a lot of opportunities for you to get involved at various levels. And Greg's going to talk about those now.
To begin, I think a good place to start would be with the problem drafters, the most significant of the positions in terms of time commitment. As Joe might have alluded to, for each of the levels of the problem, the JD and LLM, there are 2 drafters, and the drafters are responsible for the actual drafting of the problem and developing the issues included in the problem and the overall fact pattern. The drafters work in unison with what is called a technical coordinator, which is a separate position that sort of is involved in the reviewing and ensuring the technical soundness of the problem and the overall consistency of the problem. So jumping to the technical coordinator, this is the position, to back up, the problem drafting position for each level is a time commitment of approximately 30 to 40 hours, which sort of varies based on some of the complexity and the overall nature of the problem. And also, one important thing to mention is that the problem drafters are also responsible for drafting the grading rubric, which is used by written round judges to evaluate the written responses. And also they're responsible for putting together an all-around bench brief, which is a brief that sort of lays out some of the technical aspects and some of the suggested responses for the all-around judges.
Quickly jumping in on the problem drafters piece, one thing I did want to mention is we have already, seen some interest with respect to problem drafters. And so we have Will and Emily, who I think are both on, who are going to be helping out as drafters for this year's competition. So we have one for each of the JD and LLM groups. So we're looking for, I think, Scott and Greg, one more drafter for each of those groups. And so, it's nice to know at the outset that you're not going to be alone and you already have a teammate baked in. Because I know last year, before volunteering to be a problem drafter, that was one of my big concerns. Like, I don't want to get, left out in the cold, kind of it just being me. So we already have a couple folks who have expressed interest, and they're both, have really great experience. And so the other folks that volunteer as drafters, I think, are going to be on a really good team. Just good to know.
Yep, and sort of piggybacking some of what Joe was saying, the problem drafting and I guess to touch on the working relationship between the problem drafters and the technical coordinators. The problem drafting is one that it is a more significant time commitment, but the technical coordinators, at least in my experience, have always been incredibly helpful, in addition to the co-chairs as well, in terms of providing feedback and direction and really helping push along the problems and getting it across the finish line. So just know that as a problem drafter, you will have a teammate, but also there's it's one of those things that's sort of done by committee in terms of getting the heavy lifting really completed. And just to touch on the time frame and when the problem drafters really begin their responsibilities, this is one that would begin around early June and then run up till the submission date for the problem itself. But then after the problem is released, excuse me, not the submission date, the release date. After the problem is released, then you sort of work on the grading rubric, and from there the bench brief, so all in, we're talking from June through the end of September, maybe early October at the absolute latest. And likewise for the technical coordinator, it's a very similar timeline, but a slightly less time commitment. And jumping down to the marketing chairs. So for marketing, we have usually in the past, we've had about 3 to 4 chairs. And the marketing chairs are responsible for coordinating with the law schools and ensuring that the professors are aware of the LSTC and promoting LSC and really looking to further engagement with the students and the law schools. And they also serve as the primary point of contact for the professors, students, and others who are interested in the challenge. The anticipated time commitment for the marketing chairs is approximately 10 to 15 hours, beginning in July and running to the end of August. Jumping to the written round chairs. Written round chairs are usually a position and includes 2 persons, and the chairs are responsible for coordinating with the judges and as well as the drafters and the technical coordinators to make sure that everything is graded and the scores are tracked. And also they help in the recruiting process for the written round judges. The written round judging chairs is a position with an estimated time commitment of about 15 to 20 hours, beginning in September with the recruitment process and then running through early November with the coordinating of the judges, and may also be responsible for some actual grading of the submissions. So I'll pause there if there are any questions before moving on to some of the other positions. Okay. Jumping to all-around judging chairs. And these descriptions, we're reading through them at a high level, but we'll also post these so you can look at them and get a better sense after the call. All-around judging chairs, another position that it involves 2 persons, and these are responsible for judging and grading the all-round portion of the competition. They're also responsible for coordinating with the day of chairs, the chairs who serve on the actual the day of the in-person competition. And they work to ensure that all necessary information is available and in the hands of the judges, including the bench brief. And they are also may be present at the mid-year meeting at the the in-person portion of the competition, but it's not a requirement. And this is an anticipated time commitment of approximately 10 to 15 hours. And then jumping down to the day of chairs, these are a two-person position that is responsible for handling the logistics of the all rounds at the mid-year meeting, including setting up the rooms and getting everything in order, and making sure all the resources are in place. Also responsible for identifying the timers for each round, and their duties are sort of bifurcated between the pre-day of and actual day of at the mid-year meeting. So the pre-day of responsibilities are approximately 1 to 5 hour time commitment, and then the actual day of is approximately 8 hours during the mid-year meeting. And then the last position is all-around judges. Approximately 12 to 15 total judges are required, and they work in panels of 3 to 4 to evaluate the law students' oral defense of their response, their submission. And in the past, we've had various litigators and other tax professionals who have served in this position. It's a time commitment that is similar to the day of chair, sort of split between two, where they review the bench brief, which is approximately 1 to 2 hours beforehand in terms of the prep, and then the day of judging the competition, about 3 to 4 hours. And then one of the positions that was mentioned with the day of chairs is the all-around timers, which we would need approximately 4 to 6, and it would be a 3 to 5 hour time commitment during the actual day of competition. And the position is just what it is, just what it says, right? Like timing, they're responsible for actually managing the timing. And I think that is all the positions. Is there anything that I might have left out or anything you want to add, Scott or Joe?
One thing I just wanted to quickly jump back, and for those of you that have been involved with the competition, this is not going to be, news to you. But for those of you who haven't been involved, with respect to being a written round judge, which is, that's what most folks will end up doing who don't get to be involved at kind of like the higher levels with some of the more, heady positions like technical coordinators and all of that. We try to make it really easy on the written round judges because we understand that, everyone's time is valuable, and you're not going to be going into this just getting a bunch of papers written by law students and trying to, judge it out of the blue, right? You're going to be provided with a rubric that's going to be very detailed. It's going to have, cites to the law and the case law. So you can say, oh, they cited this case, check, check, check. And you can kind of go down the list. So really the grading isn't as intimidating as it otherwise would be if we didn't kind of bake all of that in for you. Just to, give a little bit of comfort to anyone who hasn't been involved before, thinking that, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to grade, 40 papers and try to figure out whether their answers are right or not. All that's going to be kind of presented to you in a package that you can use to kind of go through the submissions that you're assigned. Scott, I wasn't sure if you had anything else. I think that about covers all the positions in my view.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything else to add, Joe. I think you and Craig did a great job kind of explaining how things are going to work. And most importantly, you're not in this alone. No matter what position, whether it's drafting, grading, marketing, there's someone that has either done this before, it's going to be right there hand in hand with you doing it, or someone like myself, Joe, and Greg that have done a lot of these positions that you can reach out to. One thing I would note is the technical coordinators and drafters. We do work with the teaching tax committee, so you will have access to multiple professors to kind of bounce this off of, and they will actually review your work to make sure not only is it appropriate for the grade level and fundamentally sound, but legally correct. So yes, it is a big lift, but at the same time, you've got a lot of support around you.
Right, and I see Will's in the chat making a pitch for some fellow problem drafters. He does make a good point that you kind of have a lot of leeway to get creative with it. It's not necessarily one of my strongest suits, but often the problem will be drafted around some kind of fictitious thing based on some sort of pop culture, whether it's Game of Thrones or Seinfeld, or you can kind of have a little fun with it, which is. Kind of a cool exercise that at least I don't get to do in my everyday sort of practice. So it's a good point that Will makes.
One last point on the JD level, we would like to really focus this year on a low income taxpayer clinic type problem. As Joe mentioned, you can get real creative with the facts, but we'd like to focus that. We've had some feedback from Teaching Tax and other members within the section itself that have really pushed that, and I think it's a great idea. And one of our other co-drafters here, Emily, is actually involved in an LITC, so I think you're going to have some great help there moving forward.
Perfect. And yeah, before we wrap up here, if any of you have any questions about like, I want this position sounds good, but I want to know the real world impacts, what's going to happen to my life if I have to draft a problem in, July, yada, yada. Feel free, you can just email me, my name, so you can find my email on the internet, or, so yeah, that's easy to find me. So I'm happy to do a call or talk to anybody who has questions about any of the positions.
I went ahead and it's a great idea, Joe. I dropped my name in the chat or my email address. Same if you have a question and want to know about real world timeframes, commitments. Greg did a really good job of lining out what we expect to be the time commitments, and but always open to talk to people about this.
Good deal. Okay, I think that's about it. We'll save you 6 minutes for you guys to get a little bit of your day back. We appreciate everyone coming to learn a little bit, and we're looking forward to making this a great competition, having all of you involved. Really it's a good way to get involved with the section. It's a good way to give back to law students. It's really good all around. And if you have if you want to continue to be involved with the tax section, this is kind of a really good entry point to starting that relationship. So happy that you're all here and looking forward to it.